Thank you for coming to this Inform Your Community Know-It-All event. My name is Mike. My pronouns are he and him. I am a older white male with glasses and a multicolored beard and a black shirt. Um, Closed captioning is enabled and can be turned on by participants. At Inform Your Community, we offer events that combine really important, impactful information with having fun. Visit us at informyourcommunity.org on the web. You can find social media links on the bottom of our website. Tell your friends to sign up for our mailing list on the top right of your website. I guess it'll be that way. Informyourcommunity.org, unless the video is reversed and it's this way. So one of these. If you're watching the recording of this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. And if you're watching this live on YouTube, also please take a moment to like and subscribe. Awesome. And if you're if you're watching it also record on YouTube, same thing. Of course, you can donate using our donate link at the top right of the page. This event is part of our Know-It-All program where we invite experts to come together to discuss important issues. And today's topic is marijuana and the law. Marijuana and the law is an important topic for many reasons. As an increasing number of states decriminalize marijuana and becomes more available, the average person is far more likely to encounter or know someone who uses it in their state. Today, 48.2 million Americans have reported that they use marijuana. Marijuana use is equal among races, ethnicities, and income brackets. So far, 19 states have fully legalized marijuana. 4 states maintain full illegalization of marijuana, and 27 states have a combination of decriminalization, meaning lifting of people's current charges related to marijuana without making it legal, and medical use legislation. We are also grateful to have Josh help us with tech issues and also to help and monitor the chat. Hi, Josh. Throughout the discussion, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the chat function or use the raise hand emoji. And welcome. Let me introduce Stacy, our facilitator for today's events.
Hello, hello. Can everybody see me okay? I'm going to assume that's a yes. That's wonderful. I'm so happy. Oh, I'm so glad to see you guys. Oh, I've got to just get us started. So I am joined by 4 absolutely wonderful guests today. I am very glad to see them. They're going to help us understand this topic of marijuana and the law. And specifically, I want to introduce them now. And this includes, pot culture, medical and recreational uses of marijuana, and how it relates to social justice as well. With me, I have Ruby Dahl and Kai Storm, host of the Motherhood Sex Marijuana podcast, which has to be the best name of podcast ever, which you can find on Spotify. And you can find out more about them at motherhoodsexmarijuana.com. Also, you can check out Kai's own YouTube channel in the About page on their podcast. So I am so grateful to have you folks with us today. Thank you for coming.
But of course, thank you
so
for
much
having
us. We love you guys. What's up, Nia? We love you, girl.
Hey, sis.
And I just have to mention before we even start, aren't you folks in 2 different states usually?
Yes, but we're currently in New York right now because Friday and Saturday we're having a sexual wellness and weed event at Positive Vibes Cannabis Club in Brooklyn, New York. You could get your tickets and roll through. I'm just saying, 83 Rockaway Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. I don't understand. Go to our website and buy a ticket. Or pay at the door, whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But yes, party with us at Positive Vibes Friday and Saturday this weekend. Yes, indeed, our first live show.
My queen said it. That's right.
Well, we are grateful to have you folks here. Thank you for coming. We also have Nia Tally-Gill, who helped us out so much in creating the curriculum for this event, which you're going to hear all about today. She is a dedicated, she is dedicated to analyzing policy, and she is a policy expert and a procedural expert with extensive experience developing and reviewing new and current policies, procedures, and regulations and directives for operational compliance and for our purposes in the wheelhouse of marijuana, and specifically, which I'm so grateful for you being here, and you had such incredible impact on our curriculum. So thank you so much, Nia.
Absolutely. Sure.
And Matt, who's been active for 4 years in the cannabis industry. He handles sales and inventory at several different dispensaries in Long Island in Suffolk County. So we're grateful to have you here, Matt, as well. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much.
I am so excited to have you all here. We just introduced you all. And I think in your titles, we have some understanding of where your expertise comes from. How did you become involved in being, a podpreneur and policy expert? And how did you get into, in general, how did you all get into this cannabis space?
Wait, who answered? Who answered first?
We hope to get to everybody. So whoever wants to speak first is fine.
Well, shit, we already talking.
Okay.
Why don't we start with Matt? Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, sorry.
Sure, yeah. So I got into marijuana mostly because my mom had 2-time breast cancer survivor. I just wanted to find something that was a little bit better than some of the other drugs that she was taking, just knocked a lot out of her. Started working medical over in a place called Sunnyside, and just from there, just kind of been moving on. But yeah, no, through research, I was able to kind of even develop a little training program so that people can have, I don't have to be the person with the information always, because I'm pulled out of trainings a lot. Just, I know I got information, but it can be for everybody.
Uh-oh, sounds out.
That's fantastic. So you developed a whole training program around this topic. It sounds like what you're saying.
Oh yeah, just it's in the infancy, but yeah, just a matter of time.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So
I think
Nia, tell us about you as well.
I'm sorry, did you say Nia? I'm sorry. You did? Okay. So I am not actively in the marijuana space at this moment. I was, however, my goal was to launch a nonprofit based upon law, hopefully being passed in Congress, but it's still pending. It's the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, pardon. So it's called the MORE Act, and it has passed in the House, but not in the Senate. So we're just sort of waiting. The basis of my nonprofit would be on that law passing. So I'm kind of waiting. I'm not able to pursue that yet until it's actually legal. I can't just go walking around breaking the law. So I was able to lend as much information as I could to the curriculum, as Stacy has mentioned. During this discussion, I would like to kind of point out some of the things that just most ordinary folk don't know. I won't get into that detail just yet. We'll wait till the conversation starts brewing. But right now, I'm happy to provide any quick questions you might have, but sort of shallow, nothing too depth, anything. I'm not a law expert. I study law. I'm a law student, but my expertise is in policy. I'm a policy expert. I have a master's degree in public administration and blah, 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 blah. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm very, very honored, Stacy, that you invited me. Thank you.
Welcome. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you again for all the help that you did with the curriculum. So really appreciate that. And well, let us get right into things. And just so everybody knows, we will be sending out this video in an email after the event. So at that point, you'll be able to share it with other folks. So we're so happy you'll be able to share this with others. But we'll send you an email with the video in and a few other links in it. We'll tell you more about that later. So being in New York City, we are currently in a state where cannabis is legal for most uses, even though federally marijuana is still considered a Schedule I drug. And so, what could be, and actually, so it's very strange, right? This dynamic that it's like legal here, but federally it's illegal. It's a very strange situation, and in the last, year, basically, stores, pot dispensaries, or anyway, for materials related to pot, have been popping up everywhere around us. I'm sure it's not only where I am in New York. What could be some of the examples of the way that marijuana is used in our daily lives? What are and are there any that we might not realize that there are, or that people aren't paying much awareness to? Because obviously lots of people are using it. It's legal in New York City. What are people doing with it, basically?
I think that marijuana has an impact on just about everything. You don't necessarily have to be a user or a smoker or whatever to actually be impacted by marijuana. And the reason is because people are going to use it, they're going to smoke it, they're going to do whatever, whether it's legal or not. So this is one of the main reasons why it's become decriminalized in some states and legal in others, because we have this sort of subculture where the money is being funneled. We'd like to see it churning, right, in the economy. So we're going to be affected by it regardless. I think that the change that we're noticing is because we get to talk about it more publicly. And so we get to be more open about it. It's not as taboo as it used to be. Of course, it will remain so in states where it's illegal, but where it's decriminalized and legal, we can kind of say, yeah, I'm going to go out and smoke, and it's okay. But the impact that we're seeing in everyday life is that the funding that's generated from marijuana, it's making its way into education, it's making its way into socioeconomic programs, and that's why we're happy to see where it's affecting socioeconomic issues and it's helpful for everybody that way.
Thank you so much. And our wonderful podcasters, I didn't give you guys a chance before to tell us how you got into the space, so feel free to tell us that now, and also what your thoughts are on this topic of what are people using it for. And somebody put in the chat, they said, is it still a mind-altering substance? Which I think is such a great question, because it's like, maybe the idea was it's illegal because it's this mind-altering substance, but now suddenly it's illegal. Does that mean like the substance itself has changed in some way, that like suddenly now it's legal and totally fine to use this thing?
Still mind-altering.
Yeah, you know what?
Guys are wonderful podcasters. You want to approach that one?
Yeah, to answer your question, I'm just pissed off. And so the reason why I'm pissed off was because my first taste of, like, I guess, injustice in a way was when I had my baby. They found traces of THC in her system. Yeah, of course, because that THC and all the CBD I was ingesting was helping me through said pregnancy. And all of my research was just shut down, and it was kind of like, oh, that's cute. I'm the Western doctor here and I know what's best. I was infuriated. It was my first kid. I did all my research. I researched a study that was done, mothers in Jamaica, they had studied the kids and, all of this. And I was having food aversions during this pregnancy. So I was going through all of these, symptoms, and nothing was helping. I did not want to take any pills. And so what I don't ever condone is smoking. I can't ever tell somebody, go ahead and smoke a joint, you're going to feel better. No, you might want to consider I would say experiment in, I would say in a healthy way. But anyway, tangent. I was pissed off, and that's why I was like, I would love a space where I can come through and I could learn about how marijuana can not only help me, but other people, and we can have real discussions. And this isn't just recreational, and I'm not just some stupid ass stoner that's sitting on my couch all day. And so when I met this queen right here, she really just exudes just self-confidence, and she of course loves the plant as well. And so we just with other women, we created just safe spaces in each other's homes, just talking about it. Our conversations with our kids, that's just like changing the narrative. We aren't raising kids that are scared of this beautiful plant.
Absolutely not. Let me tell you something. Marijuana is a woman that lives in my house rent free. Nobody is scared of her. No, everybody knows her smell. Nobody worried about her. Nobody. No, they know she is part of the family. Okay. Okay. And Motherhood Sex Marijuana, the podcast, represents a safe space where we, as women, or people that are potheads, that can get together and talk about our issues that we deal with as parents, like CPS, and people getting in our business trying to act like we all of a sudden not good parents just because marijuana is one of our best friends. No, no, no. We absolutely have our receipts, and our receipts say we do everything. We make sure all responsibilities are what's good, what's tea. That's how it goes down. And I've been a mother myself since 1997. So, and I've been tested plenty of times by CPS, and every time they come, they find nothing, they go away because, and they get cursed out at the same time because I will tell them that there's a child somewhere getting abused that you should be helping right now instead of worrying about this child that lives good and eats good. And yes, she smells marijuana in her household every day. It's part of the family.
It's mom's medicine.
It's mom's medicine. and
Well,
don't play with hers.
Thank you. Thank you for that definitely honest answer. I really appreciate it. It helps add to the discussion as well. And Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I always loved about cannabis is the fact that whether it's recreational or medicinal, someone looked at me and said, It's all kind of medical because you're always treating something usually. Everybody usually walks in with, oh, I want to sleep or I just need to eat or something like that. So I think that's one thing that is kind of often not necessarily always talked about because whichever dispensary you might end up at, there's always something to treat something. And again, we're no doctors, but we could certainly try to make it a little bit more comfortable. But I think
you know your own body.
Exactly. I feel like it's also nice to have the control because I've seen so many anti-nausea this and try this and that, and it's like, but you could also try a natural plant. So that's something I always used to love.
Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
actually,
Thank you for
sorry.
that wonderful insight as well. And we've come such a long way since like the 30s, where films like Reefer Madness, right, or laws like the Marijuana Tax Act were in place. And but still, not everybody's really caught up, right? A lot of people still have this idea of Reefer Madness in their mind, or they've heard about it. How do you introduce the topic or topics like, you know, cannabis culture or legalization? How do you talk to people about that who don't know about it? Like, even, you know, obviously the forthrightness, you know, with our wonderful podcasters, like some people want to take it in that way, some people might be put off by that. So how do you kind of, you know, what do we do? How do we talk to people about this topic and educate them about these issues?
I don't know if there's a way to do it. I'm just going to be honest. A lot of folks who've made up their mind, and that's it. And that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen the MORE Act passed in the Senate, because there are people who just say, oh, no, it's a drug. But I've got to kind of like echo what Matt just said, because we should start looking at marijuana in a way that's actually homeopathic, right? And he says we're treating everything, and marijuana does exactly that. If you have a difficulty with, you know, with your appetite, it's an appetite stimulant. If you're having pain, it helps with pain. It does a lot of things. In fact, it's very helpful if you brew it as a tea and you have a cold. It actually works as a natural antibiotic. So it has a homeopathic treatment about it. And it's always been there naturally. But getting people to think in those terms is very, very difficult, right? We're looking at over, what, about 50 years or so of prohibition, where they've been just constantly bombarded with this negative sort of message so that Marlboro could make a lot of money. That's what happened. And so people believe what they've been told for decades, and there's really no undoing that. I think eventually we will see some states come along. I think we're actually closer to 24 that are both either legalized or decriminalized. We're somewhere closer to 24 states. But we've got half the country that will sort of make their way along, and they won't because they open their minds about marijuana. They will come along because they like the idea of having that increase of taxes funding that they need for whatever projects, especially as we see our economy decline, and it will. So when it does, we'll have more states climb on, and then things will change. But I don't think that we can sort of broach the subject in a way that says, come on, it's fine, open your brain. It's not going to happen. It's just going to be the economy changing people's minds.
That's a fair point to be sure. And it's this this balance of, the law, changing the people's minds will eventually change the law's minds, but also in changing the laws, there's some benefits for the people. So, which ends up coming first there a little bit as well. You mentioned the benefits of the tax money. I'm wondering if anybody has an anecdote of somebody they know or somebody they've had experience with where it's like helpful, right? Because we can talk about it in the abstract, like, yeah, it does these things, but tell us about an example where, like, no, really, this was something that this person needed. Does anybody have an example like that?
I mean, we've met plenty of people on our podcast where it's not only helped them through pregnancy, like Ruby was talking about, it helped me through my pregnancies as well. We definitely have talked to people that have. Matter of fact, we are going to talk. There's a episode coming up with a lady called Bougie Stoner, and one of the things that she mentioned was that for years she was very depressed, and she was always taking these prescribed medications, and it wasn't until she was introduced to cannabis that things changed for her. And so it's like, now that she's living her grown life, her kids are grown, and so she's just living her life. Like, one of the medicines that she uses is cannabis, and she definitely spoke in depth about that on our podcast. So, and like I said, we talk to people like that all the time. We talk to people that don't even smoke or intake cannabis in any way, shape, or form. Our podcast is about people come on. If you got a business or entity you would like to promote, sure, come on, let's talk about it. But at the same time, the people that are involved in cannabis, they definitely have a lot of them have come to us and said if they turn to cannabis based on a medical need that pharmaceuticals was not going to help. And let's be honest, the pharmaceutical don't want you to take nothing natural. That's going to make them lose money. They don't want that. They're mechanics, and mechanics only patch the problem. They ain't fixing the car.
And that's why these discussions and what you all are doing here is so important, right? It's empowering people to make informed decisions about their own lives based on what's going on. I don't know if this is too racy to say, but the ability to smoke weed, talk about it, and party with it is probably the closest thing to white privilege that there probably is. I don't know what white privilege is, but it probably is. And so until we join forces, and until like stoner moms like us join forces with policy experts like Nia Talley and movers and shakers like Matthew and Stacy and whoever else might be on this podcast or in the stream, it's not going. I think it will have to change. The discussions will have to, because otherwise, if you're against marijuana, you're number one, uninformed. Two, you're probably greedy and money hungry, and you want to know how to get a piece of it. And so that's why it's like these people that are lawmakers and stuff, that's great, or these people that are making money off of the industry right now that don't even smoke weed. It's like, yeah, there's a cultural aspect too. Okay. And so we hone on that. There's a spiritual aspect that I haven't quite figured out, but I know that it helps me with. There's a cultural aspect where I'm able to meet wonderful people like you guys. And we're able to, whatever walks of life we come from, we all love this plant. For some reason, it brings us together and it brings us to peace and harmony. And so since my life is catered to harmony, anything that has to do with it, I'm all for that. And so thank you.
Girl. Yay.
Thank you
Much
for
love.
for your insights about that and bringing up these topics of race and privilege. Those are definitely important topics. A lot of people mistakenly think that, oh, this is a topic that's not for me. I don't need to be concerned about this. And sometimes underneath that is a racial understanding of what pot smoking is, that is often misguided, because like you said, it's people with wealth smoke pot, people without wealth smoke pot, people who are white smoke pot, people who are all different kinds, right? They're it's across the spectrum of who people are. Obviously those 61 million people are not just one group of people or one age of people, or one, right? And by the way, I did want to mention, Nia, thank you for the correction on the number of states. Our statistic is probably a little outdated because we have to use online sources. You're on top of it, so you know exactly at every time who's legal or not. So thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. And actually, speaking of educating, and thank you for the kind words about what we're doing here today. So I wanted to know, could we clarify some terminology? Right? Because it's about informing our community. But if we just talk about this topic, but people don't know what it actually means, right? That's not helping anyone. So can somebody tell us things like THC, CBD, hemp, cannabis? What do these terms mean? And I'm kind of looking at maybe Matt, you're in the biz, you've got you're working at the dispensary. How do you clarify these terminology?
I would say that a lot of things so one of the big confusions I've had a lot is the difference between cannabis and hemp. Honestly, if we're talking about the plant, there really isn't much difference. It's just what you breed it for. The stuff they call marijuana has more THC, or the psychoactive part of it. That stuff that gets you high. And then hemp, most of the time, either is just for the fiber or the CBD in it, which is you'll probably see it like gas stations all over the place. But it's a part of the plant that really just kind of calms down THC and really a lot of inflammation. But those are the two big players, THC and the CBD. If you got that part, for the most part, you got a lot of what the plant is.
And there's a lot of other cannabinoids, and we could get into it. I'm not an expert, but I was learning about the happy one, which is, I believe, please, Matt, CBA. Does that sound like it? And then CBN would be the sleepy one. Now, these are all cannabinoids that are attached to receptors that are already in our bodies. And so if you don't believe me, research it.
You got that right, though. I'm not sure about CBA, but the thing is there's so many different cannabinoids. I'm not confident enough to say that you'd be wrong. I mean, I think you're probably right. There's CBG and CBC, all different 3-letter acronyms, but I think for sure it's one of those things that the deeper you dive, the better you find how helpful it really is.
And there's a lot more research out there and just more articles about it and everything else as well. So I think it's becoming more easier to search for this information. Nia, I was wondering, do you have any terminology you think we should know, the kind of general population to be aware of?
Yeah, I don't know the difference between CBD and CBG and CBA and I don't know. I honestly don't. But I love to learn and get as much information about it as I can. The terminology, though, that I would speak to has more to do with agencies. Sorry, I'm a little boring. So there are a couple of things I just want to point out. If you are a licensed dispenser, as in the case with Matt, when the license is issued, it's actually not issued by the Office of Cannabis Management. The Office of Cannabis Management actually regulates the system. but the license itself is actually issued by the Division of Alcoholic Beverages Commission. So they're the folks that issue the license, but they're not the folks that actually regulate. The enforcement arm comes from the Office of Cannabis Management, and then they are regulated by the Cannabis Control Board. So there's a little bit of a hierarchy there. What I wanted to point out, though, is that when we look at the law, the MRTA, I think that it's really important that we understand that, and be careful that there's no bait and switch happening. Written in the law is the interest and the intent to improve law enforcement, empower and strengthen law enforcement throughout the state of New York. So you got to be very, very careful if you're licensed to dispense, be compliant. The movement is very swift. The actions are very swift. You can be charged up to $25,000 in citations. They give you 6 months to pay it off. If you can't pay it off, guess what? You lose your license for 3 years. So be very, very careful with your compliant issues, and follow every single rule. They have a ton of forensic accountants, and they will monitor everything. So I just wanted to point that out. If you happen to have marijuana on your person, in your car, whatever, do not cross the state line with it. Take it out of your car, leave it at home, take it out of your pocket, out of your purse. Do not cross the state line with marijuana on your body, anywhere, or your car, anywhere. Once you cross the state line, you're now in federal jurisdiction, which means you can be charged with a federal crime. Because why? As Stacy mentioned earlier, cannabis is still illegal on a federal level. So even if you're carrying to a legal state, for example, from New York to New Jersey, it's legal in Jersey also. If you get pulled over by a state police officer, guess what? They can still charge you with a felony. They can charge you with DUI. Unlike the New York cops, they can charge based upon an odor. The New York cops, the law says, well, we can't search based on odor, but they can on the highway. They can in the airport. So just be mindful. Be super, super careful, because while the laws seem a little bit lax, enforcement is not at all. So just want to kind of point that out to everybody watching. Be very, very careful and know the laws and know where you are. When you're in the state of New York, it can vary from municipality to municipality. The law allows for the local governments to make it less accessible. In New York, for example, like in Manhattan, for example, you can walk around with 3 ounces on your person. But if you're in a place like Rochester, they can say, no, only 2 ounces. And so if they find you with 3, then guess what? You're going to get charged. So you've got to know where you are. The rules can change from local government to the next, from one to the next. And the last thing I just wanted to add, there's an advisory board that has everything to do with how those funds are allocated in the state budget. So I can talk about that later. I want to point out some things regarding the allocation of funds, but that was the last term I wanted to cover, the advisory board of cannabis.
Thank you for all those clarifications on that. And I certainly didn't know that. I can see now how the federal intersects with the state, and how that, who knows that? Like, just because you might be using the substance legally in your own state, you might not know those very intricate details of when and where you could get in trouble at a federal level. And so in a famous case, the owner of a California legal dispensary, Charles C. Lynch, was arrested on federal charges in 2007, which would only actually lifted a few months ago. So it's like, almost 20 years, 15 years. So it's that he was caught in that kind of situation. And actually, we previously Inform Your Community had done a marijuana law event with in our popcorn and chat program. We showed the movie called Lynching Charlie Lynch. And it's really a very interesting movie about this kind of, he was fine to do it, but then he wasn't fine to do it. Have any of you guys seen that movie? If you haven't, I really recommend it. Lynching Charlie Lynch. But I mean, you can watch our discussion on YouTube as well. But
I've seen it.
How has increased awareness about these kinds of issues, and the new changes that are going on around the country? How has that changed how people view it in society, or benefited society? how are people taking that information in? And do you have any stories about that?
I can tell you right now, as a New Yorker, I can tell you right now that I am of the not giving two F's about no, because the thing is this: while I see, at the license shops, and I congratulate all of them, clap clap for them, yes yes, but guess what? The plug is across the street. The plug got prices that work with my budget, and the plug don't charge me tax. And one thing, because I used to live in Seattle, that's how me and Ruby met. I'm used to buying weed without feeling the tax, because in Seattle they do it right. They put the tax in the price, so you don't see.
Let me interrupt you a second, and actually I have to go back to Nia as well. So we want to make sure, for people who don't know the topics, we want to make sure they know what these things are. So actually, Nia, you had mentioned an acronym for the marijuana law. So if you can tell us what that acronym meant, and then I want to go back.
You mean OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management?
Okay, was that the one?
Yeah,
that would be one.
That was one of them. I also mentioned MORE Act, which is Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you were telling us about, and I'm like looking down here at you, but you were telling us about the plug. So tell us about this plug.
Well, the plug is an unlicensed shop.
Black market.
Black market, meaning we pay the rent. The landlord takes our rent, and our rent is paid on time because we make money every day. And while I do, yes, you see that OCM is running down and closing a lot of these shops, because we are talking about New Yorkers that are on the level of don't give a F. They have people who literally sit right in front of the closed store with a whole card reader, like, what? I take Cash App, Zelle. What's good? I take Cash App, Zelle. What you got? What you want? You can swipe your card, pay what? So so yes, like I said, I have been in a lot of the license. One of my favorite license shop is Gotham Buds in Harlem, and baby, when I walked in there and I saw that Method Man was selling joints, two little joints about this big, for almost $30, plus tax, and I could take that same $30 to the plug. No, I'm gonna pay the plug. I'm gonna pay the plug. Thank you for opening your shop. That's cute. I'm paying the plug.
Nia, go ahead.
You can grow your own. You can have up to 6 plants in your house.
I'm doing that too, girl. I got two good, pretty plants right over there. But what I'm saying is that they don't grow as much as I smoke. I'm a whole chimney. So you know what I'm saying.
Okay, you can have 6 plants for one adult, 3 small ones, 3 mature ones, or you can have 12 plants if you have 2 or more adults in the house. And of course, that would be 6 small and 6 mature. I'm having a little bit of a technical problem here. So, I mean, we just need to be really, really clear. We have no idea where this plug exists, and we're going to remain confidential in terms of.
No, we're definitely. I'm not giving up the plug address. No.
I love.
But this is how to show you how serious it is. I mean, because really, I mean, I even asked my husband the other day, just to be funny. I was like, have you since these legal shops opened, have you ever been in one of them? He's like, hell no. What am I going there for? Exactly. Because again, I really don't. The only way they're gonna get my money is if they start doing it like how Seattle do it. Put the tax in the weed, and don't be selling small joints for $30. Method Man. Hello, you from the hood. You should be selling joints for $10. You gonna sell them for $30, and they were small. Boy, gone.
So it sounds like that perhaps the competition, even for dispensaries, and it seems like Matt dropped off for a second. I think he was having technical difficulty, but it sounds like even for the dispensaries that, and the new laws and things like that, that maybe there's people who were getting it this way. They're going to continue to get it that way, and hopefully the laws will not be too harsh on them. I want to know, Nia, especially, can you tell us about like decriminalization, what that exactly means, why it's important, why are you doing what you're doing, in terms of what does that law mean, why is it important?
So decriminalization is extremely important. We have tens of millions of people with marijuana charges, and it's having a negative impact on their lives, whether they can vote, whether they can get a job. It affects livelihood, and it even affects education, whether you can get accepted at a certain college or not, or organization. And so decriminalization would be extremely important to so many people for so many reasons. We have people in prisons and stuff. They could be released and move on with their lives if we would just allow that simple thing. It's not helping us. It's harmful. If we treat, well, in many states we are, but when we treat marijuana the same way as we do alcohol, we'll find that there's almost very little difference in terms of the way we regulate both. And so both, whether you use either one or both of them, you should be able to live your life so long as you're not harming yourself or someone else. And I am a strong proponent of that kind of thinking. We need to start making real progress. And to Queen Kai's point, the reason why we're seeing the marijuana so expensive in the dispensary is because it's a supply and demand issue. So once we see more dispensaries, obviously the price is going to come down. So it's a temporary situation. It's only because New York is new at this, but soon you will see more dispensaries, and then you'll see the price come down. They will have no choice but to do so. But in the meantime, yeah, I hear you. Just kind of like, be sure you don't let anybody know that you're doing that. Keep it,
Allegedly, she was.
I mean, first of all,
As her lawyer, I'm just kidding.
At the end of the day, I don't know when the last time you walked down New York City streets, but the fact is that they're popping up way more. I mean, again, the give of there are no levels of care. They're popping up. There's people that they'll literally put a table on the corner and just be like, hey, like I've been at the beach where a guy just walked past me like, what you need? Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. So again, and my thing is, I also lived in New York City back in the day when I was buying it in the basement, where I was, buying it from a dude on the corner, or where a dude exchange numbers and we would meet up somewhere. I'm used to that. So right now, so as far as I'm concerned, ain't really nothing different. The only difference is that I can freely walk down the street smoking, and I don't have to worry about nobody running up on me. But other than that, that my life is still the same. I was purchasing in the basement or purchasing from somebody whose door just got knocked down, and I'll be like, yeah, but do you still have weed? Okay, then let's sell me some. Like, sell me some.
It's interesting.
So that's what I'm used to.
It's interesting. So there's not only the lawmakers that have to change their perspectives, and the people who don't know about marijuana who have to change their perspective, but the people who I shouldn't say who have to change their perspective, but who, as there's more laws, as there's more legalization, as there's more dispensaries, as there's more knowledge on the internet, it's these different constituent groups, including people who have smoked pot for a long time, who also have their way of doing things, that maybe it doesn't change, right? Just because now it's this or this or this. And it almost makes sense if you were willing to take the risk before. Right. And certainly nobody here on Inform Your Community is advocating anybody taking that risk. If you're in a state where it's legal,
Right.
Oh,
your
no,
legal
no, no.
thing.
I
If you're
don't
in a state where
encourage
it's
you
not
to do
legal,
that. I
go do
do.
your legal thing.
Oh, no, no, no.
Allegedly. I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, no, no. If you can afford to go in a dispensary, please go
Please
support
go
them.
for it.
Especially the black owned ones. I'm just
Please.
saying, especially the black owned ones, the
Might as
women
well go
owned
back to
ones.
the black
Yeah,
business. We
but
actually have some.
I'm just saying, especially the black owned ones, especially the women owned ones.
Let me
As far as
interrupt.
I'm concerned,
Let me
child,
interrupt for a second because we do have somebody who's got a hand up. So Jessica, you've got a hand up. Why don't you yes, what do you have for us?
Okay, my question is, were you worried about it being laced with something when you were buying it illegally off the street versus when you were buying it from a reputable dealer and making sure it's okay? And really, I prefer edibles because I can't stand the smoke.
oh, okay. I got you. I got you.
There's different ways to ingest.
And there's definitely different ways to ingest. And yes, I definitely do pay attention to where I buy my my substance from. I absolutely do pay attention, and for the most part, a couple of the people that I buy from, I've been buying for a while, so therefore I trust that
it's like having a good mechanic, a good family friend.
You know what I mean? So, and the plants that I'm growing, one of the plants that I'm growing literally came from seeds that I bought from weed that came from the plug. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, no. And again, if I go into the reputable places, I'm going to the sales section, and they don't have a sales section yet. See, that's another thing I miss from Seattle dispensaries. They had a sales section for the brokies. I'm just saying, when you wasn't really, rich and feeling like that, and you but you still wanted to smoke, there was a sales section.
There's
a lot of things that New York City can do, but probably won't do because New York wants the money. New York wants that tax money. They don't really. They want that tax money. They want that license money, and they want you to mess up so they can get you for more money. So the plug wins. The plug wins.
So I have one more question.
Sorry, on that note, I wonder, and I apologize for the background noise. I apologize for that coming through. Towards that end about like both the the safety of doing it illegally, but also the of purchasing it illegally, I should say, that Jessica mentioned, but also now that it's this industry, right? And there's actually like, oh, so Joe on the corner in his corner store sells this. He's got it at this, he's got a sale section. Like, just that we're talking about it that way is such a change. Like, when I grew up, we didn't talk, like, pot was not talked about like that, right? Like, oh, the sales section of the pot store, like the dispensary, like that was not a thing, right? So I'm wondering, is there in the industry, and again, I'm sorry Matt's not here, but in the industry, is there something to be said for, like, will there be monopolies? Is this a space where this is going to be a growing economic contributor? I know Nia mentioned taxes, and that's when people are going to start paying attention, when the money can help with, defray costs that would usually be taxed in other ways. But is there this, I mean, there clearly is this booming industry, right? So let's talk about marijuana as a business. What does that look like? And I'm gonna start with Nia.
Well, I mean, if we look at it as a business, we have to have a business plan. And we have a marketing plan and everything else that would be akin to running a legitimate business. I think that having access to running a business in New York is a little bit pricey. We understand that commercial property in New York is very pricey. And it's probably why the cost of one, what do you call it, Kai? Anyway, one thingy, whatever. The cost of it would be expensive because of overhead and because of all the other things associated with being able to run a legitimate business in New York. But that's true across the spectrum, regardless of which industry you're in. So it's going to be tough. I mean, one of the biggest problems that I see with this whole marijuana thing is how delicately you've got to balance where you're smoking and where you're. And I don't want to beat the drum to death, but if, for example, if you're on federal property, if you're in a federal park, you can't just, while you can smoke a cigarette, you cannot smoke marijuana in a federal park. If you are in federal housing, if you have a mortgage that's an FHA mortgage that's HUD funded, you cannot smoke on your property because it's funded by a federal government. So, you know, these kinds of things can be a bit of an issue. But what does it look like to run a business in New York? I don't know if it matters if it's marijuana or not. It's hard to run a business in New York. You really have to know your market. You've got to be able to market your product. You've got to be able to make it, like Queen Kai said, it's got to be at a price point that people can actually purchase the product. That means buying in bulk. I don't know what the regulations are in New York State to have enough bulk to bring the price down in a dispensary. You might need to have several dispensaries before you can afford to bring the price down. I mean, again, it really has to do with running a business regardless of the nature of the business.
Hey, just an FYI, 5-minute warning before event formally ends. So like keep your responses, give it depth, but don't keep it brief.
Thank you for keeping us on our toes. I appreciate that, Josh. So I do have another question though, is I wanted to know, what about like vapes, e-cigarettes, and their use in conjunction with cannabis? Like, are there connections there that we should be aware of? A recent study found that in the US, the number of people who use marijuana, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, who use marijuana daily or near daily now exceeds people who consume alcohol with the same frequency, although it is still the case that more people drink overall. So what are your thoughts of these kind of, are there intersections between these, e-cigarettes, vaping, alcohol? And then a kind of second level of this question is, are there places for concern here? Right? Like, alcohol is a regulated drug and it maybe helps that it's regulated. Is that same thing, applicable for marijuana, for vaping, for e-cigarettes? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Lots of stuff for you to touch on there in our last few minutes.
Did I jump in? I think the e-cigarette is a little bit more concerning than the vaping thing for marijuana. And the only reason I say that is because with the e-vape thing, I'm sorry, I'm calling it that. I'm sorry, I don't smoke cigarettes. I have smoked marijuana though. I have, but I quit because of federal issues. But I think that the e-cigarette is more dangerous because it's got this a deliberate inhalation of the nicotine, and it becomes a lot more dangerous when it's ingested in the body. But when you ingest the marijuana, you're just ingesting marijuana, and that's it. And there's nothing more besides having the munchies and maybe going to sleep. But marijuana is not causing cancer, and nicotine is. And so I think that's the primary difference. But outside of that, I don't know if there's anything particularly different outside of those two things. I don't know. I might be missing the rest of the question.
I mean, for me, I think it's either way because like for me, I smoke with cigarette, well, not cigarette, but cigar wraps, and we all know that cigar wraps are made of nicotine, or have nicotine in them, you know what I mean? And then there's people that use grabber and all kind of other things. So, I guess depending on how you need to pick how you want to ingest, marijuana in your system. You know what I mean? And I don't like that vaping shit at all. I don't like it at all. I'm a straight roll, smoke, pass.
We're old school with it.
Really?
I have just a quick question. Like, what can the average person do to help in the fight of decriminalization, Nia?
Oh, thank you. That is a very good question. So let me touch on one thing that I thought was especially important in New York. I was looking at the allocation of the funds where 40% of cannabis revenue is going to community grants, 20% is going to schools, 40% is going to drug treatment and public education. And I don't necessarily like those numbers. I'm okay with the 40% for grants, but I'm not okay with the 20% for education. I mean, for schools. I think that's a paltry number. I think that more money should go to schools. I think that we should see more money and funding going to all of New York schools. I think that the funding should allow for New York State residents to go to college for free, all the way through the PhD or medical program. If we're going to be charging this kind of money, then we should be helping people who need it the most and who are willing to do the work. So I think meet them where they are and use the money in a good way, in a powerful way. So a good thing that we should be doing is writing and contacting the OCM, writing the advisory board, and letting them know how we feel about that. Those allocations are not working, especially in areas and communities that have been, suffered the most from prohibition, right? People who look like me. And so I think that, something needs to be done about that. Now, how do we get more states involved? We need to show them the kind of numbers that are being generated in legalized and decriminalized states. Let them see the kind of money that they could use and could benefit from. Because again, it's only the money that's going to change their mind. So we want to show them state budgets, we want to show them allocations, we want to show them all the positive things that are happening in communities and schools and socioeconomic programs. And that is the way to start to, redirect people and turn people's heads so that we can see an improvement across the board throughout the country.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I'm sorry for that background noise there. I really appreciate that input there. Great points. Certainly Kai and Ruby also excellent points. And it really raised the points of like, well, there, before this last comment is also this like, pot versus vaping versus cigarettes versus alcohol. Really they've all got their problems and their uses. And so ultimately using things wisely, respectfully, appropriately in ways that suit what you're able to do. And of course, I'm going to say legally, nothing personal. But in any case, I'm so glad you all are here. I encourage everybody to read up more about it. We didn't get a chance to talk about a whole bunch of things, but we did cover a whole lot. I just wanted to mention a few names of folks that people might be interested in kind of learning about how they might be related to this topic, maybe things that would surprise them. Charlotte Figge, Snoop Dogg, politicians like former Speaker of the House, former Speaker John Boehner, sorry, and former Rhode Island Representative Patrick Kennedy. Very interesting to see kind of where they intersect with the topics we're talking about. So I'll put those in the chat as well. But having said that, we're going to unfortunately have to close our conversation. Mike, can you take us away? Oh, and I'm so sorry. Somebody did have a question in the chat. They just asked, oh my gosh, I lost it. They wanted to know how the laws have changed, but I think this current law, can you just tell us the name of that current law again, Nia, the one that's there? I think if people look that one up, they'll get the most understanding of what's happening now.
Yeah, so let me just read it so I don't make a mistake myself. It's the MRTA, Marijuana Regulation and Tax Act, the MRTA of New York. And they have their own website, so you can just Google it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Mike, take us away.
All right, finding my unmute button. There we go. Thanks to our wonderful guests.
So sorry, we lost Mike.
No, am I here?
Mike's here. I can hear him.
Oh, okay.
I can see him too. Yeah.
All right, we'll try this again. So thank you so much to our wonderful guests. Thank you to Josh. And thank you to all our folks in the audience joining us today and everybody that's watching on YouTube as well. We hope you enjoyed this discussion and will help spread the word about the nuances around marijuana and the law, as well as the values we discussed today: pot culture, economic benefits, racial justice, medical use, and recreational use. To help you continue discussion, we will send our event video and infographic in a follow-up email by the end of next week, which we encourage you to share with others, especially on social media. Also, please consider committing to a weekly act to raise awareness about issues related to marijuana and the law. Getting informed by coming to this event is a great way to start. Check out groups such as the Vera Institute or Common Justice, working to end youth incarceration, as well as locally owned dispensaries and pot businesses where you are. Don't forget the Motherhood, Sex, Marijuana podcast, Kai's YouTube channel. Our email will include another brief survey of what you thought of the event itself, so take the time to respond. Your feedback is very important for us. Also, right now there should be a poll appearing if you're in the Zoom chat. So if you take a few minutes to answer that poll, that would be great. To look and learn about more great Inform Your Community events, not only our Know It All program, but events from our other programs as well, please check out our website, informyourcommunity.org. We provide free events thanks to the generous donations of those who can afford to help them make that happen. We'll be posting our new calendar of events for the entire year in July, so check it out at informyourcommunities.org/events. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please be sure to like our video and subscribe to our channel. And also, maybe drop a link in your social media so your friends can do the same. Also, please consider donating to cover the cost of materials and shipping if you can afford it, as it helps keep our events free for those who can't. So thank you for coming and helping inform your communities. Thank you for coming and for helping inform your communities based on what you learned today. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.